She was dragged through town for being infertile. Until a mountain man cut the rope, Mara kept her eyes on the dust, because looking up only made it worse. The main street of Greyridge was wide, meant for cargo carts and supply haulers, but today it felt like a stage built for her shame. The rope around her wrists was not tight enough to cut her skin, yet it felt heavier than iron. It pulled her forward in small, forced steps. Every time she slowed, the rope went taut and reminded her that the town had decided her body was not her own. People lined the road on both sides. Some stood in doorways, half hidden behind hanging cloth screens. Others were bold, arms crossed, faces hard with the kind of certainty that needed no proof. Children were lifted onto crates so they could see. A few women pressed their lips together, their hands busy with nothing, as if doing something, anything, could erase the fact that they were watching. The bell near the council hall rang once, slow and official. It was not an alarm, it was a signal. Greyridge did many things by signal: ration distribution, water pulls, shift changes, curfew. Even shame had a schedule here. Mara had lived in this colony town for 22 years. Her earliest memory was of the landing years, when the roofs were still patched from storm damage, when people shared warmth and water like family because there was no other choice. She remembered her mother laughing at night while fixing a torn filter, saying, "We are far from Earth, but we have each other." Somewhere along the years, each other had turned into rules. The rules started as safety. Then they became tradition. Then they became identity. And after that, they became a weapon that did not need a blade. She felt the pull again and took another step. Her boots slid a little on gravel. She tried to keep her breathing calm. The air tasted dry, like old metal and sand. 2 council guards walked behind the rope handler. They did not carry weapons. Greyridge did not allow them in town. That was one of the rules people proudly repeated to visiting traders. "We are a peaceful settlement. We handle things like civilized humans." The guards wore padded jackets and carried small stun sticks for emergencies, but they were not using them. They didn't need to. The town was doing the work for them with eyes, words, and silence. The rope handler, a man named Holt, kept his face forward. He was not cruel by nature, Mara thought. She had once seen him give half his meal to a lost child near the water tanks. He was the sort of man who followed the line painted on the floor because someone in charge said it was safe. Today, he followed another line, the one drawn by fear. "It has to be done," someone whispered close to her left. Another voice louder answered, "If we don't keep standards, we die out." A woman in a pale work coat shook her head as Mara passed, but her eyes stayed down. Shame was contagious in Greyridge. People feared catching it more than they feared the truth. Mara's wrists ached from holding them together. Her hands were numb from the cold morning wind. She wanted to say something, anything, to make them see her as a person again. But she had tried already in the council office 2 days ago when they first called her in. She remembered the room clearly. The harsh light, the table bolted to the floor, the air purifier that clicked every few seconds like a nervous habit. Elder Sen sat at the head of the table, fingers folded as if in prayer. Beside him were 2 others, Counselor Van and Counselor Hira. They were not old in body, but they acted old in mind, wearing the weight of the future like armor. "Mara L., Sen had said, voice flat. "Your application for a family license has been denied." Mara had felt her stomach drop. "Denied? Why?" Van slid a paper across the table, a clean medical report stamped with the colony clinic seal. One word on it seemed to glow, infertile. "That is not correct," Myra had said quickly. "I asked for more tests." "The first scan was unclear," Hira interrupted. "We cannot waste medical resources on hope." "It's not hope," Mara said. Her voice had shaken, but she forced it steady. "It's my life. I'm healthy. I work. I contribute. You are not a contributor to the future," Van had said like she was reading a rule book. "We are not Earth. We cannot pretend we have endless people. Every adult must either produce or support production." Mara had stared at him. "Support production? You mean serve families?" Sen leaned forward a little. "You will not speak like that." Mara's hands had clenched under the table. "So what do you want? For me to leave? Because my body didn't do what you expected?" The room had gone quiet. The purifier clicked. The light buzzed faintly. Sen had finally said, "There is a protocol, you know it." Mara did know it. Everyone did. No one talked about it much, but it lived in the town like a shadow behind every smiling face. If a person was labeled non-viable, The council could remove their housing and place them on the outer line, the zone beyond the farm fences where only short-term workers and traders camped. A person could stay there if someone sponsored them. But sponsorship was rare, risky, and socially costly, and when a person was made an example, the council used the rope. Mara had laughed then, one sharp sound that surprised even her. "You're going to parade me like an animal?" "It is not violence," Hera had said. "It is correction." Mara had left the council office feeling like the floor had tilted. People in the hall had looked at her and then away, as if she carried a smell. Now in the present, that memory burned in her chest, and she swallowed hard to keep her breathing steady. The rope tugged again. Holt was leading her toward the center square. The square had been built around the water tower, the oldest structure in Greyridge. Its base was thick metal, stained from years of wind and dust. A ring of benches surrounded it, and above, the tower's thin pipes ran like ribs toward the sky. Today, more people were there than Mara had seen since the last harvest festival. The council stood on a small platform. Elder Sen wore his long gray coat. Councillor Van held a tablet. Councillor Hera stood with hands behind her back, face blank. Mara's feet slowed without her meaning to. Being near the platform felt like stepping toward a cliff. Holt guided her to the center of the square, where a post had been set into the ground. The rope ran through a metal loop on the post, so she could be moved in a circle if needed. It was a simple design made for control without injury. Greyridge liked that about itself. Elder Sen raised one hand, and the crowd quieted like a machine following command. "Citizens of Greyridge," he began, his voice carried well, he had practiced it. "We are gathered under the laws that have kept us alive. We are gathered to face hard truths without fear." Mara felt her cheeks burn, hard truths, as if she were a weather report. Sen continued, "Mara L. has been evaluated by our clinic. The result has been verified. She is unable to contribute to population continuity." A murmur moved through the crowd like wind through dry grass. Mara lifted her head. Her eyes met faces she knew. Jory from the repair shop, who used to joke with her during tool checks. Nessa from the hydroponics line, who once cried on Myra's shoulder after a bad shift. Old Ramai, who had taught Myra how to test soil with simple kits when she was 14. Some looked away, some stared at her like she was already gone. Sen raised his voice slightly. "We do not punish her, we do not strike her, we do not harm, we remind her and all of us that Greyridge must be protected from weakness." Myra's stomach twisted. She wanted to shout that weakness was not a person, weakness was fear. Weakness was cruelty wrapped in rules, but the words stayed behind her teeth. She had learned something in the last 2 days. When a crowd decides your meaning for you, your own voice can sound like noise to them. Councillor Van stepped forward and read from his tablet. "By protocol, Myra L. is removed from inner settlement housing and reassigned to outer territory until sponsorship is secured. She is allowed 1 pack of supplies and 1 personal item. The town will not provide further rations." He paused. "This is not exile. This is order." Order, that word was a wall. Myra could feel it closing in. Elder Sen nodded. "She will be guided to the boundary line and released. Citizens are instructed to observe and remember." Myra felt a tightness in her chest, not pain, but something like grief trying to become anger and not knowing what shape to take. Holt began to walk, pulling the rope through the post loop. Myra's wrists pulled forward. The crowd stepped back to make a path. She started moving again. The square led into the east road, the one that passed the farms and the windbreak fences and then opened to the dry plain. Beyond that plain were the low hills and then, far away, the mountains. Greyridge sat like a small, stubborn dot between hard land and sharp stone. The mountains had always been there, watching. The children in town called them the sky teeth. The elders called them a danger zone. Most adults called them nothing at all, as if naming them invited trouble. Myra had never been to the mountains. She had seen them only from a distance, blue-gray against the bright sky. Sometimes, after storms, she could see a thin line of snow on their peaks. Sometimes at night, she imagined lights there like old Earth cities, though she knew that was only imagination. This planet was young to humans, but old in other ways. Old enough to hold secrets that the colony had never fully understood. A small stone hit the ground near Myra's boot, not thrown hard, not meant to injure. Still, it made her flinch. "Just go," someone muttered. "Don't make it harder." Harder for who? Myra wondered, for her, or for them having to live with themselves. As they moved, she noticed something else. the town's small sensor poles along the road. They were meant to monitor air quality, radiation drift, and storm pressure. Many were old and patched, with mismatched parts from years of repairs. Their little indicator lights blinked steadily, indifferent. Mara's thoughts flicked to the clinic report again. Infertile, she had tried to understand it. The clinic had done a basic scan as far as they could afford. It was not advanced. It was not deep. Their medical gear was built for emergencies. Infections, fractures, dehydration, radiation exposure. Not for long, careful diagnostics. When Mara was 16, a visiting med tech from a larger city colony had once told her casually, "Your town's clinic is a bandage kit pretending to be a hospital." Mara had laughed then. Now the memory made her want to cry. She had asked for another test. The nurse had looked nervous and said, "The council must approve resource use." Mara had said, "This is my body." The nurse had whispered, "Not here." The rope tugged. Mara stepped forward again. They passed the last row of homes where the walls were painted light to reflect heat. After that came the green line, the farm domes and hydroponics sheds. Workers stood inside, visible through plastic panels, hands moving among plants. A few paused and looked out. One person pressed a palm against the panel, as if wanting to do something, then lowered it and returned to work. Beyond the farms was the fence. Not a tall one, just a practical barrier to keep animals out and mark territory. On posts along it were signs with simple symbols, a circle for town, a slash for no access, and a smaller line that meant beyond this point you choose. Myra had always thought those signs were meant for outsiders. She had never imagined she would be the one pushed toward them. Holt slowed near the fence gate. The two guards stood a little behind, watching. Elder Sen and the council were not here now. They didn't need to be. The ritual was already done. Holt cleared his throat. "Mara, I'm supposed to say this isn't personal." Mara turned her head slightly, enough to look at him without yanking her wrists. Holt's eyes were tired. He looked like a man carrying a heavy box that wasn't his. Mara's voice came out quiet. "If it's not personal, why does it feel like they are peeling my name off me?" Holt swallowed. He didn't answer. He didn't know how. He guided her through the gate. The path beyond was less maintained. The gravel thinned and gave way to hard dirt. The wind felt stronger here, unobstructed by buildings. It tugged at Myra's hair and coat, cold despite the sun. A few people followed at a distance, not close enough to be involved, but not far enough to claim ignorance. They were the ones who wanted to witness without responsibility. Myra looked at the plain ahead. It stretched wide, pale, and lonely. A few scrub plants clung to the soil. Farther out, the land rose into rough hills, and beyond the hills, the mountains sat in silence. Something about them felt different now that she was outside the fence. Not safer, not kinder, just real. Behind her, Greyridge was still visible. The water tower rose above the roofs. The town looked small from here, like a child's toy set placed on a harsh table. Holt stopped near a boundary marker, a metal stake with a red band painted around it. This was the release point. Beyond this, the town was no longer responsible. That was how they framed it. Responsibility ended at paint. Holt reached for the rope knot. His hands hesitated. Myra stood still. Her wrists were sore, her throat was dry. She did not beg, she would not give them that. The guards shifted their feet. One of them glanced toward the horizon where the sky met the hills. Holt loosened the knot slightly, then paused. His voice was low. I'm sorry." Myra's eyes stung. She blinked and forced the tears back. "You're not the one who decided my worth." Holt looked at her, and for a moment his mask of duty cracked. He seemed to want to say something brave, something human. But behind him were the guards, and behind them was the town, and behind the town was fear. Holt finished untying the knot. The rope slid free from Myra's wrists and fell into his hands. Myra lowered her arms slowly, feeling blood rush back into her fingers. She flexed her hands, small movements like testing whether she was still herself. The wind blew between them. One of the guards spoke, not unkindly. "You can camp at the outer line. Traders pass sometimes. If you find sponsorship, you can apply for re-entry." Mara looked at him. "And if I do," the guard's face tightened. "Then you don't." That was all the system needed to say. Mara turned her gaze toward the hills and the distant mountains. She could feel the eyes of the followers behind her. She could hear Greyridge in the wind, not words, but the shape of its judgment. She adjusted the strap of her small pack, one pack of supplies, one personal item. She had chosen her mother's old compass, even though it didn't work perfectly on this planet. It was a symbol of direction, not accuracy. It was the only thing that still felt like home. Myra took one step forward into the open land, then another. Behind her, Holt and the guards watched, waiting for her to move far enough that they could turn around and go back to their warm rules. Myra kept walking. The town shrank behind her. The fence became a thin line. The people became dots. The sound of their murmurs faded until only the wind remained. She did not know where she would sleep tonight. She did not know if anyone would offer sponsorship. She did not know if the label on that report would become her whole story. But as she walked, something inside her began to harden into a quiet decision. If Greyridge wanted to measure humans only by what they could produce, then Greyridge had forgotten the very reason humans survived the stars in the first place. Humans were not built only to multiply. They were built to adapt, to learn, to protect each other when the world was cold and unfair. Myra lifted her chin and looked toward the mountains again. The peaks were sharp against the sky, like a promise and a warning at the same time. Far above, unseen by the town and the watchers on the plain, a figure stood among stone and wind. He was wrapped in layered cloth and old survival gear, his face hidden behind a visor scratched by years of dust storms. In his hands was a long, thin device made from salvage, part scanner, part scope. He had been watching the town's road for a long time. He watched Myra step past the boundary marker. Numbers moved across his display, soft green lines and symbols, bio readings, heat signature. Stress levels, small details that told a bigger truth. He saw something in her data that the clinic in Greyridge could never have measured, something subtle and strange, something that did not fit their simple stamp of infertile. The figure's head tilted slightly, as if listening to a sound only the mountains could hear. He lowered the device and looked at Myra with the still patience of someone who had lived alone for too long, and yet had not forgotten what people were supposed to be. Down on the plain, Myra paused for a moment, feeling the wind shift. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't a sign from the sky. It was just air and weather. Still, she felt, oddly, like she was not completely alone. She tightened her grip on the strap of her pack and kept walking. The wind was colder as Myra walked into the open plain. The sun, though bright, did little to warm her skin. The ground beneath her boots was hard and uneven, dotted with scrub plants and rocks that pressed into her soles. Each step felt deliberate, a rhythm she could hold on to as the thoughts swirled in her mind. The town behind her was fading, but the weight of its judgment was still there, like a shadow stitched into her spine. Her pack shifted slightly with each step. It was small, barely enough to carry essentials, but it was all she had. She thought about the compass her mother had given her, the needle still twitching against the magnetic pull of this alien world. Myra studied it often, though it didn't always point north. It pointed somewhere, though, somewhere she had to go. The plain stretched endlessly, broken only by occasional clusters of rocks and dry bushes. The mountains loomed far in the distance, jagged against the sky, holding secrets she could not yet understand. She wondered what it would be like to reach them. Would she find help? Or would she find only more silence and isolation? Myra kept walking, letting her mind drift to memories of the town. Faces she had known, hands she had held, laughter that had once felt warm. It all felt like a different life now. Each memory was a thread connecting her to a place that had turned its back on her, and yet she could not help but remember the small kindnesses, moments of humanity that had been real, even when the rules had been cruel. She paused to catch her breath and looked down at the dirt path ahead. There were tracks, faint but visible. Perhaps animals had passed this way, or maybe other travelers. The thought of someone else sharing this path, even unknowingly, made her feel less alone. She adjusted her pack again, feeling the rough straps dig into her shoulders. Her hands flexed at her sides, tingling as circulation returned after being bound by the rope. She clenched her fists, testing the strength in them, a quiet reminder that she was still capable of moving forward. The sun climbed higher and the air became thinner. Myra noticed how different it felt from the town. There was no artificial hum of machinery, no repetitive sounds of drills and water pumps. Here, the wind carried only itself and the whisper of rocks shifting in the distance. It reminded her of something she had read once, that a planet's voice could be heard if you only stopped listening to your own. Hours passed. Myra stopped occasionally to rest, sitting on a flat rock or leaning against a cluster of boulders. She took sips from the water bottle in her pack, careful not to waste too much. The landscape slowly changed, the scrub plants giving way to harder stones, and the ground beginning to slope upward. The mountains were closer now, closer than they had seemed from the town's boundary. She noticed something strange. The wind patterns shifted as she approached the foothills. They carried hints of something metallic, something resonating that she could not identify. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it made her stop several times, listening. Myra remembered the stories her mother told her about the planet when they first arrived, about how it had its own heartbeat, how it responded to life around it in ways humans could not always measure. She had laughed at the time, thinking it was a bedtime story to soothe a child. Now, walking alone, she wondered if there had been truth in those words. As the day passed, shadows grew longer and Myra felt the first chill of the evening. The mountains now dominated the horizon, massive and silent. They were no longer distant guardians, they were obstacles she would have to cross, peaks that could hide both danger and possibility. She wondered what might live up there. Not wild animals, perhaps, but remnants of things left behind long before humans arrived. Ancient technology, old structures, maybe even ruins that predated the colony itself. Myra's imagination wandered, fueled by curiosity. She thought of the sky teeth stories children whispered in the town, tales of beings who could see the future, of machines older than humanity. At the time, she had dismissed them as myths, nothing more than fanciful exaggeration. Now alone in the plain, she felt the faint pull of those stories, a subtle urge to believe that something greater than herself waited in the mountains. The night arrived faster than she expected. The temperature dropped sharply, and the stars emerged one by one in the clear sky. Myra found a small overhang formed by rocks where she could set up a temporary resting spot. She unrolled the thin sleeping mat in her pack and arranged her few supplies carefully. The world seemed vast and infinite, and for the first time since the town had cast her out, Myra felt a sense of both vulnerability and freedom. She lit a small fuel lamp she had carried from the town, careful not to burn too much. Its warm glow pushed back the shadows just enough for her to see her immediate surroundings. She thought about the town again, wondering if anyone would even notice her absence beyond a day or two. Perhaps the council would continue to enforce their rules, moving on without a second thought. Perhaps the townspeople would feel a fleeting pang of guilt and then forget. Myra allowed herself to feel a quiet sorrow for what they had lost along with her, the humanity that had been buried under fear and rules. Sleep did not come easily. Her mind churned with memories and possibilities. The plain was quiet, but there were sounds she could not identify, the distant cry of creatures, the rustling of rocks shifted by wind. At one point, she thought she saw movement in the shadows, a figure walking just beyond the glow of her lamp. She held her breath, but it was only the wind, or so she told herself. When dawn came, the mountains looked even more imposing. Light spilled across their faces, highlighting crags, ridges, and deep crevices. Myra packed her few belongings, careful to leave no trace behind. She tightened the straps of her pack and set off, choosing a path that seemed manageable yet direct. Her legs ached from the previous day's walk, but her spirit had a strange energy, a determination that came from having nothing left to lose but the fear of failure. Hours into her ascent, she noticed a change in the terrain. The soil began to take on a strange texture, smoother in some places, rougher in others, as if shaped not entirely by nature. Small metallic fragments glinted in the sunlight. Myra bent down to inspect them, brushing away the dirt and discovering thin, flat panels embedded in rock. They were clearly artificial, though she could not tell their purpose. Her curiosity surged. These fragments were unlike anything she had seen in Greyridge. They were old, alien in design, yet somehow still functional in ways she could not measure. Her heart raced with excitement and unease. If these were remnants of the sky teeth stories, then she might not be the first human to find them, but she could be the first to understand them. Myra's mind whirled with questions. Who had left them? Why here? And most importantly, could they help her in ways the town never could? She moved carefully among the fragments, touching their surfaces. To her astonishment, the metal hummed faintly at her touch, responding to pressure and heat. A faint glow pulsed along the edges, as if acknowledging her presence. Myra stepped back, startled but exhilarated. She had never encountered anything like this, and yet she felt a strange connection. It was as if the planet itself, through these relics, was communicating a welcome, or perhaps a test. Myra pressed on, climbing higher, her eyes scanning for more signs. The path narrowed as she ascended, with steep drops on one side and jagged rocks on the other. She relied on careful steps, holding onto protruding rocks for balance. The plain she had crossed was now a distant memory, the town a mere dot far below. The wind howled more sharply here, whipping through crevices and making the fragments sing faintly with a strange resonance. As she rounded a bend, Mara spotted something unexpected, a small structure tucked into a mountain ridge. It was built of stone and metal, weathered by years of wind and storms, yet clearly designed with intention. The shape was unusual, angular yet organic, as if it had grown from the mountain itself. She paused, her breath caught in her chest. The structure radiated an aura of quiet authority, a presence that was both welcoming and intimidating. Mara approached cautiously, aware that she might not be alone. The mountain was supposed to be empty, yet the structure suggested habitation or guardianship. As she drew closer, she noticed movement, a shadow shifting within the entryway. She stopped, heart pounding, unsure whether to call out or retreat. The figure emerged slowly, wrapped in layered cloth, carrying a long device that reflected the sunlight. His movements were deliberate, careful, yet fluid, as if he had practiced them for decades. Mara felt a mix of fear and curiosity. He did not appear threatening. Instead, there was a calmness, a presence that suggested knowledge and patience. He stopped a few meters from her, scanning her with a device she could not identify. Mara instinctively straightened, meeting his gaze. The visor he wore reflected the mountain light, obscuring his eyes, yet she sensed understanding there, something beyond words. The man spoke, his voice low but clear. "You are far from home." Mara nodded, unsure whether to respond. I was sent out," she said finally. "The town, they said I don't belong." He listened silently, then lowered the device. "Do you know what you carry?" Mara frowned. "What I carry?" She tapped the small pack at her side. "Only my supplies." "No," he said. "Inside you, something the town could never see, something they called impossible." Mara felt a shiver. I don't understand." The man gestured toward the structure behind him. "Come, if you are willing, I will show you." For the first time in her life, Mara felt a glimmer of hope. She looked at the mountains, at the vast sky stretching above, and made a choice. She nodded, stepping forward. The man smiled faintly beneath his visor and motioned for her to follow. Mara moved toward the structure, leaving the plain, the town, and the rope behind. She did not look back. The mountains whispered around her, and she felt that perhaps at last someone, or something, was listening. Mara followed the man up a narrow path that twisted around the mountain's side. Every step made her muscles ache, but something in his quiet confidence gave her courage. He moved with a rhythm born of experience, each step deliberate yet effortless. The path was rough and littered with stones, but he seemed to know exactly where to place his feet. Mara stumbled once, and he caught her arm gently, not with force but with care. "You must learn to trust the mountain as much as yourself," he said, voice calm like wind through rocks. "It will guide you if you listen." Mara nodded, though she did not fully understand. She only knew that every step away from the plain felt like a step toward possibility, away from the shadow of the town. Her thoughts flickered to Greyridge, to the council's words, to the rope that had bound her. It all felt distant now, like a dream she had been forced to live. The structure grew larger as they approached. At first, it seemed like a natural outcropping of stone, as if the mountain itself had shaped it. But closer inspection revealed clean, straight edges, smooth surfaces that reflected sunlight in odd angles. Metal plates had been fused into the stone, etched with symbols Mara did not recognize. They glimmered faintly, as if responding to her presence. The man paused at the entrance, which was low and narrow, forcing Mara to duck slightly. He gestured for her to go first. Mara hesitated, then stepped inside. The air was cool, almost cold, carrying a faint hum that vibrated against her skin. Her eyes widened as she took in the space. The interior was unlike anything she had ever seen. Smooth walls curved up to a ceiling that seemed to float, suspended without support. Panels of glowing material lined the walls, pulsing faintly with light that moved in patterns she could not understand. In the center of the room was a platform, low to the ground, with a set of etched symbols radiating from it like a starburst. Mara felt drawn to it, as if it called to her without sound. The man removed his visor, revealing a face weathered by years, with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "I am Rook," he said, "and I have been waiting for someone like you." Mara blinked. "Waiting for me?" Yes, Rook said simply. You carry something the town could never see, something that can awaken this world. Myra shook her head. I don't understand. I'm just a person. I was called infertile, that's all. There's nothing special about me. Rook shook his head. Infertile is what they call those who do not fit their small understanding of value. It does not define you. What you carry is not something the council or the town can measure. It is something older, something the planet itself recognizes. Myra's heart beat faster. The planet recognizes me? Rook nodded. Yes, long before humans arrived, this world had its own systems, its own intelligence. You are connected to it. In ways we cannot fully explain yet, you are the key. She felt a mixture of fear and awe. The idea was overwhelming. She had been cast out for being useless, and now someone was telling her she was crucial to the survival of the world itself. Her mind spun. Could it really be true? Could the world have chosen her just as much as the town had rejected her? Rook gestured to the platform. Come. Let me show you something. Myra stepped forward slowly. The closer she got, the more the symbols pulsed, reacting to her presence. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, not heat from the room, but something deeper, a resonance that made her feel alive in a way she had not known since childhood. Place your hands here, Rook instructed, pointing to a pair of shallow indentations in the platform. Do not force it, just let yourself connect. Myra hesitated, then knelt and placed her palms on the cool surface. At first, nothing happened. Then a faint glow began to rise beneath her fingers. Lines of light traced her hands and wrists, moving slowly across the etched symbols. She gasped, feeling a tingling warmth that ran up her arms. The light grew brighter, forming a pattern that mirrored the structure of her own hands, as if the platform was mapping her presence. Rook watched quietly. The planet reads patterns of life, Mara. You carry a code, a resonance that can interface with its systems. No one in Greyridge could see it because they were looking at the wrong measure of worth. Mara's mind struggled to keep pace with the words. I don't understand. What do you mean a code? Your biology, your energy, your presence, your very being has the ability to activate these structures. They were built to respond to something like you, to someone who can bring balance to the world. You were never infertile in the sense they claimed. You were designed differently, not broken, but unique. The words made Mara's chest tighten. Tears threatened to fall, but she swallowed them. For years, she had carried shame, silence, and rejection. And now she was told that all of it had been wrong. Rook gestured to the walls. These fragments you saw on the way up are part of a larger system. It was abandoned long ago, but it still waits. The planet remembers, and it recognizes life that can interact with it. That is why you were guided here. Mara looked around, taking in the glowing panels, the smooth metal, the strange etchings. She felt both fear and exhilaration. She had always wanted to be important, to have meaning beyond chores and rules, but never in a way like this. This was larger than her life, larger than Greyridge, larger than she could imagine. Rook knelt beside her. You are the bridge, Mara, between humanity and this world, between the past and what can be. Mara shook her head. I don't know if I can do this. What if I fail? Rook placed a hand on her shoulder, firm but gentle. You have already survived more than you think. You walked away from a town that rejected you. You came here alone across the plain through uncertainty and fear. That shows strength, courage, and adaptability. That is the kind of strength this world recognizes. She looked at him, uncertain, but the sincerity in his eyes was impossible to ignore. For the first time, she felt a sense of purpose that was not dictated by fear or expectation. Rook stood and walked toward a console embedded in the wall. He touched a series of symbols, and the floor beneath them shifted slightly, revealing a staircase that descended into darkness. The glow of the platform illuminated the path just enough for them to see. This way, he said, there is more to show, more to understand, but it requires focus and trust. Myra took a deep breath and followed. The staircase spiraled down into a chamber larger than anything she had imagined. Its walls lined with alien structures, screens of unknown material, and nodes that pulsed with lifelike energy. The air was filled with a low hum that vibrated in her chest, syncing with the beat of her heart. Rook stopped near a central node. This is the control point. It responds to resonance patterns like yours. Watch. He extended his hand, hovering it above a glowing symbol. It shifted and pulsed in response as if sensing him. He looked at Mara. Do you see how it responds to presence and intent? Your touch will do the same. Mara approached the node cautiously. Placing her hand on it, she felt a surge of warmth and energy that made her gasp. Lines of light traced up her arm, moving across her body, connecting her to the chamber in ways she could not describe. The air seemed alive, vibrating with anticipation. "You are connected," Rook said softly. "This is what Greyridge could never measure. This is why you are needed. The world itself recognizes your potential to guide, to heal, to create balance." Mara's mind raced. "Guide, heal, create balance? I don't even know how." "You will learn," Rook said, "and you are not alone. I will help you. But you must trust yourself and the planet. Do not let fear from the town dictate what you are capable of." For hours, Mara and Rook explored the chamber. He showed her how the symbols and nodes interacted, how her touch could awaken dormant systems, how her presence alone could influence the structures embedded in the mountain. Mara felt a sense of awe and wonder she had never experienced. She realized that the shame and fear imposed by Greyridge had been a mask over her true potential, hiding a connection she was only beginning to understand. As the first light of dawn filtered into the chamber, Mara sat back, exhausted but exhilarated. She looked at Rook and whispered, "I never thought I could matter like this." Rook smiled, a rare, warm expression. "You have always mattered. Greyridge only failed to see it. But now you have a choice. Will you use what you carry to shape something greater than yourself?" Mara nodded slowly, feeling a weight lift from her chest. For the first time in years, she felt clarity, purpose, and hope. She was no longer defined by a town's narrow rules. She was defined by the connection she carried, the potential within her, and the path that stretched ahead, unknown but full of possibility. High above, the mountains whispered in the wind, and the world seemed to lean closer as if listening. Mara took a deep breath, feeling energy coursing through her fingertips. She understood now. She had been cast out not because she was weak, but because she was too important to be measured by the small minds of Greyridge. The chamber seemed alive as Mara's hands hovered over the glowing symbols. Lines of light traced her fingertips, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Every movement she made felt like a dialogue, not with Rook, but with the mountain itself. The hum of the room shifted in response, growing deeper and more resonant. Mara realized that the air carried energy, subtle vibrations that she could feel in her chest. It was like touching the pulse of the world. Rook watched silently, his eyes steady but filled with something Mara could not name. Encouragement, perhaps, respect, recognition. He had told her that the planet recognized her, but she had not fully understood what that meant until now. "What happens if I do this wrong?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You cannot do it wrong," Rook replied. "The planet does not require perfection. It responds to intent, to connection. It only needs you to be present, aware, and willing." Mara took a deep breath and placed both hands on the platform. The light pulsed brighter, following her touch. Symbols along the walls shifted, aligning into patterns she could not yet comprehend. A soft vibration ran through the floor, traveling up her legs and into her torso. She felt a warmth spread through her, a sensation that was both physical and spiritual. The energy seemed to acknowledge her presence. Mara's mind opened to ideas, visions of the world as it could be, the plain below stretching with vitality, the mountains alive with hidden systems, water channels opening, plants shifting toward light and life. She gasped. She had never imagined the world responding to a person like this. "It's amazing," she whispered. "It's like the mountain is listening." Rook nodded. "It is, and you are the bridge. Your life, your presence, your awareness, these are the keys. You were never meant to be measured by Greyridge's rules. Those rules could never see this. This is what humans are truly capable of." Mara trembled with awe. She realized he was right. She had been cast out, labeled infertile, reduced to a number on a report. And yet here she was, interacting with something that far surpassed the narrow vision of the town. The shame they imposed felt small and meaningless compared to the power she now glimpsed. The light shifted beneath her hands, forming a map of the mountain and surrounding terrain. Nodes lit up across the peaks, along ridges, and deep within hidden valleys. Each pulse seemed to correspond with a system: streams, weather patterns, plant growth, even soil composition. Mara could feel the potential of restoration flowing through her, an awareness that the land was not dead, only waiting for guidance. Rook stepped closer. "The mountain's systems are dormant but not inactive. Your connection can awaken them. Think of it as teaching the world to remember itself. You do not force it, you guide it, you show it the way." Mara exhaled slowly, letting the fear seep from her body. She had spent years being told she was worthless, incapable, useless. And now, in this place, she felt the opposite. Her presence mattered, her actions had weight. The town's judgment was powerless here. "Where do I start?" she asked, her hands hovering over the most central node. "Start with awareness," Rook said. "Feel the energy, observe the patterns. Let the mountain teach you. Do not try to control it. Let it respond to you naturally." Myra closed her eyes and focused. She felt the hum grow stronger, resonating with her own heartbeat. She opened her mind to the vibrations, noticing how the nodes shifted with subtle variations in her energy. She realized that even her thoughts, intentions, and emotions influenced the system. A wave of clarity passed through her. She saw the plains, the rivers, the valleys. She saw life flourishing where it had been barren, subtle shifts in soil and water flow, plant growth adjusting to the sun. The mountain responded to her awareness, bending, shaping, and awakening with each pulse of energy she contributed. "Do you see it?" Rook asked. "Yes," Myra said softly. "It's beautiful. It's like it's alive." "It is alive," he replied. "And humans are part of that life, not all humans, but those who can recognize the connection. You are one of them." The words filled Myra with a sense of pride she had never known. Pride not in dominance or power, but in the ability to contribute, to guide, to heal. She realized that the town's definitions of value had been narrow, incomplete, and cruel. The world, in contrast, measured worth differently, by awareness, by intent, by the ability to harmonize with life itself. She placed her hands more firmly on the platform. Light pulsed up her arms, branching across the etched symbols in waves. The air hummed louder, and she could see subtle changes in the glowing panels. Streams of data, or what appeared to be data, flowed across the walls, translating into patterns she could understand intuitively. She did not know the mechanics, but she felt the logic, the language of life that the mountain spoke fluently. Rook watched with quiet satisfaction. "You are learning quickly. The mountain recognizes your intent. Now begin to guide a small system. Focus on a single node, a single stream, a single plant network. Let it respond to you. Watch and adjust." Mara nodded. She reached toward one of the smaller nodes on the platform, centering her focus. Immediately, she felt energy flow through her fingers into the system. Light pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Slowly, she began to notice subtle shifts in the visualization of the landscape. Streams of water, previously stagnant in the model, began to flow. Plant networks adjusted their orientation toward sunlight. Soil structures shifted to retain moisture more effectively. The smallest details moved, and Mara felt a deep satisfaction as the world responded. "It's working," she whispered. "Yes," Rook said, "and it will continue to work if you continue to guide it. The mountain is patient. It does not demand speed. It demands awareness and persistence." Hours passed. Mara lost track of time, entirely absorbed in guiding the systems. Every pulse of energy, every adjustment she made, felt like a conversation with the planet itself. She learned to sense where the mountain needed her attention, where it could handle itself, and where subtle guidance could make the greatest difference. By the end of the day, she felt exhausted but exhilarated. She leaned back on the platform, letting the light pulse over her hands as she rested. The mountain hummed softly, a lullaby of energy that seemed to acknowledge her efforts. Rook sat beside her, quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "You see now, don't you? This is what humanity is truly capable of. Not the rules, the labels, or the judgments, not the fear that Greyridge imposed, but connection, contribution, understanding, and guiding life itself." Mara nodded, her chest swelling with a mix of pride and wonder. I never knew this was possible. I never knew humans could matter like this." "They can," Rook said. "If they remember what they are meant to be, if they remember that strength is not just survival. It is awareness, it is empathy, it is understanding systems beyond themselves. That is the true measure of humanity." Mara closed her eyes, feeling the hum of the mountain through her fingertips. She imagined the town far below, narrow and small, bound by fear and rules that had failed to see the bigger picture. A part of her wanted to shout, to tell them what they were missing, but she knew that time would reveal the truth in its own way. For now, her responsibility was here, with the mountain, with life, with the systems that responded to her presence. Night fell, and the chamber glowed softly, lights pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Mara sat cross-legged, hands resting lightly on the platform. She felt a profound sense of peace. For the first time in her life, she was not defined by judgment or fear. She was defined by her own choices, by her connection to life, and by the potential she carried. The mountain whispered through the hum, not in words, but in resonance. Mara listened, letting it guide her. She understood now the world had more to teach her than Greyridge ever could, and she had more to teach the world in return. Rook stood and looked down at her with approval. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we expand your awareness further. The plains, the valleys, the rivers. You will learn to guide larger systems. You will begin to understand the planet's language fully. Mara nodded. She felt ready, stronger than she had ever been. Her heart no longer carried shame. Her mind no longer held doubt. The mountain had opened a door she could never have imagined, and she had stepped through it willingly. She lay back on the smooth platform, letting the soft glow wash over her. Outside, the wind shifted across the peaks, carrying the faint scent of distant plants and minerals. The mountain breathed around her, alive and attentive. Mara closed her eyes and listened. For the first time, she felt entirely at home, and she knew without question that she would never return to the narrow definitions of worth imposed by the town. She had discovered something greater, something the mountain had always known. Humanity was capable of wonder, of guidance, of shaping the world itself. Mara drifted into sleep, the hum of the mountain cradling her, promising more lessons, more discovery, and the chance to awaken the planet fully. In the morning, she would rise and begin again, not as an outcast, but as a guide. Mara woke to a pale light filtering through the mountain chamber, the soft glow of the alien panels merging with the first rays of dawn. The hum of the systems was stronger now, more confident, responding to her presence like a living heartbeat. She stretched her arms over the platform, feeling the warmth of energy coursing through her fingers. Each pulse seemed to whisper a promise that she was ready and the world was ready too. Rook stood nearby, watching with calm approval. Today, we expand beyond this chamber, he said. You will guide systems across the plains, rivers, and valleys. You will awaken the planet fully and learn the full measure of your connection. Mara nodded, a mix of excitement and focus in her expression. She had learned much in the past days, how the mountain responded to awareness, how intent shaped energy, how presence alone could influence systems. Now it was time to act on a larger scale. They exited the chamber, stepping onto the ridged mountain paths. Mara noticed the wind carrying subtle shifts in temperature, moisture, and sound, signals she had learned to interpret as signs of the planet's attention. Rook led her to the edge of a cliff, overlooking the vast plain she had crossed days before. It stretched endlessly, but now she could see faint pulses along the ground, lines of dormant energy waiting to be awakened. Focus on the plains first, Rook instructed. The mountain responds to the human presence, but the land itself needs guidance. You will awaken its systems in stages. Mara closed her eyes and let the energy flow into her awareness. She could feel the subtle vibrations beneath her feet, the dormant currents in the soil and water. She imagined the plains alive, flowing with vitality, each pulse a seed of potential. Slowly, she raised her hands, stretching toward the horizon. The land responded. Lines of light rose from the ground, tracing patterns along rivers and streams, through clusters of vegetation and open soil. Mara felt a rush of exhilaration, her heart sinking with the pulse of the land. Streams began to flow more clearly, water levels adjusting naturally and soil shifting to retain moisture. She watched as dormant plants bent subtly toward sunlight, leaves unfurling as if waking from a long slumber. Rook observed silently. You see, this is what humans are capable of when they align with life itself. Not through fear, not through rules, but through awareness, patience, and intention. Mara opened her eyes, scanning the plains below. The change was subtle, almost imperceptible from a distance, but she could feel it. The land was responding to her, bending to the rhythm of her guidance. She had been cast out from Greyridge, told she was useless. And yet here she held the ability to awaken life across an entire world. Do you feel it? Rook asked. Yes, Mara said softly. It's like it's listening, really listening. Exactly, he replied. And you will guide it further, step by step, system by system. You will awaken forests, rivers, soil networks, and eventually the atmosphere itself. Humans were never meant to dominate the world. They were meant to harmonize with it, to understand its language. You are the first to do so fully. Mara spent hours moving along the mountain ridge, arms outstretched, hands brushing toward the land as if conducting an invisible orchestra. She visualized streams of water, plant networks, soil systems, even small weather patterns. Each thought, each intention, was a seed she planted into the world. The plains below began to shimmer faintly in response, the dormant energy she had seen in the chamber now manifesting across a vast landscape. As she worked, Mara felt a deeper connection not just to the land, but to herself. She was no longer defined by judgment, by labels, or by the narrow rules of a fearful town. She was defined by awareness, intention, and the capacity to contribute. The shame she had carried for years dissolved into a quiet pride that did not demand recognition. It simply existed because she had chosen to act, to care, and to guide. Rook joined her at one point, pointing toward a series of nodes along the river delta. Focus here. The water systems have been weak for generations. Guide them carefully. Let your intent shape the flow without forcing it. The land knows how to respond if you provide direction. Mara knelt near the river, closing her eyes. She imagined water flowing freely, reaching every dry patch, nourishing the soil and plants. Light pulsed along the water's path, invisible to the human eye but resonating in her awareness. Slowly, small ripples appeared on the river's surface, patterns forming naturally as if the river itself understood her guidance. Hours turned into a day, and by sunset, Mara had guided several systems across the plains. Streams flowed, vegetation responded, and the land hummed with renewed vitality. She looked at Rook, a smile spreading across her face. "It's beautiful. I didn't think it could feel like this." Rook nodded. "It is not just beautiful, it is alive. And humans, when they remember their potential, can be a part of that life. You have shown the first steps. The town could not measure this. They could not imagine it. And yet you have succeeded." Mara's thoughts drifted to Greyridge. The town had judged her, cast her aside, and failed to see the bigger picture. She felt no anger now, only clarity. Their narrow definitions of worth were irrelevant here. She was not defined by what they had rejected. She was defined by what she chose to create. That night, Mara camped on the ridge. She lay on the smooth stone, gazing at the stars. The mountain's hum resonated with the rhythm of her breath. She felt a profound sense of peace, knowing she had begun to awaken the world. For the first time in her life, she was not just surviving, she was contributing, shaping life in a meaningful way. Rook sat beside her, watching the stars. "Tomorrow, we awaken the forests and the higher river systems. You will learn to guide larger networks, and eventually you will reach the mountains themselves. The planet will respond fully to your presence." Mara nodded. She felt ready. Every step she had taken since leaving Greyridge had prepared her for this. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and rejection, and emerged stronger, more aware, and capable. The following days were a blur of discovery and connection. Mara moved through valleys, plains, and river networks, her hands brushing toward the land as she guided dormant systems into life. The subtle energy lines she had seen in the chamber now extended across vast distances, linking forests, waterways, and soil networks. Each pulse of her awareness strengthened the land, making it resilient, responsive, and alive. Mara discovered patterns she had never imagined. How small adjustments in water flow could awaken entire groves of plants. How the soil retained moisture better when guided gently. How subtle energy currents could encourage wildlife migration. The world seemed to teach her as much as she guided it. Every time she thought she understood, the land responded in ways that revealed new possibilities. Rook remained beside her, a quiet guide and teacher. He never took control, only offered insight when Mara's awareness faltered. "Humans are capable of shaping life when they align with it," he reminded her. "Not through force, not through dominance, but through understanding, observation, and care." Mara felt the truth in his words. Her past life in Greyridge had been filled with rules and judgment, but here, she realized the true measure of humanity, the ability to observe, to connect, and to guide life with intention and empathy. She was not just a human outcast. She was a bridge between the world and those who would come after her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mara stood atop a ridge overlooking the plains. Light shimmered along rivers, forests moved subtly in the wind, and the land pulsed with renewed vitality. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The world was alive, responsive, and beautiful, and she had played a part in its awakening. "Look at it," she whispered to Rook. All of it responding. He smiled, the first full smile she had seen from him. "Yes, and it will continue to respond. You have started a cycle, Mara, life will continue, guided by awareness and care. Humanity, if it remembers, will contribute to this world rather than destroy it. Mara closed her eyes, letting the wind and hum fill her senses. She felt a deep connection to everything: the mountains, the rivers, the plains, and the hidden systems that thrummed beneath the surface. She realized that the town's judgment had been irrelevant all along. True worth was not measured by rules or labels, but by the ability to observe, connect, and act with purpose. Weeks passed. Mara continued her work, exploring distant valleys, higher river systems, and forested regions. The planet responded in ways she had never imagined, growing stronger, more resilient, and more alive. She began to understand the full extent of her connection. She could guide not just individual systems, but entire networks, influencing the balance of life across vast distances. Her confidence grew, but so did her humility. She realized that she was not controlling the world. She was part of it, a participant in a dialogue with life itself. Every pulse, every adjustment, every subtle gesture of awareness contributed to the planet's awakening. And then one morning, Mara reached the edge of the mountain ridges where the clouds touched the peaks. She looked out over the transformed land below, rivers flowing freely, forests alive with energy, plains pulsing with light, soil networks strengthened and resilient. The world was responding fully. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment and purpose. Rook stood beside her, watching. "You have done what the town could not imagine. You have awakened life, guided systems, and demonstrated the true measure of humanity." Mara smiled, tears of joy filling her eyes. "I never knew humans could do this. I never knew I could do this." "You can," Rook said softly. "And now you will guide others, teach them, show them how to connect, to contribute, and to harmonize with life. Humanity has potential beyond fear and rules. You are proof of that potential." Mara took a deep breath, feeling the wind against her face, the hum of the mountains beneath her feet, and the vibrant pulse of life across the plains. She realized that she had been cast out for being different, but in truth, that difference had allowed her to awaken the world. For the first time, Mara felt complete, not because the town had accepted her, but because the world itself had recognized her worth. She was not defined by judgment or labels. She was defined by awareness, connection, and the ability to guide life itself. The mountains whispered in the wind, the plains pulsed with energy, and Mara smiled. She had discovered humanity's true strength, the capacity to observe, to connect, and to guide life with intention, empathy, and care. And as she looked across the awakened world, Mara knew that she had found her place, not just in the mountains, not just in the plains, but in the heartbeat of life itself. She had begun a new chapter, one where humans could matter in ways the town had never understood, and where she would guide not only the land but the potential of her species. She raised her hands, letting the energy pulse through her one final time for the day. Light shimmered across the landscape, responding, alive, and aware. Mara felt a deep sense of peace, knowing she had started something that would endure far beyond herself. The stars appeared above the peaks, the wind carried the mountain's hum, and Mara rested, confident in the knowledge that she had fulfilled her purpose. And far below, Greyridge remained unaware of the power it had cast aside, the potential it had dismissed. Mara no longer carried its judgment, she carried the world.